Welcome back to 40 Reviews. I am your reviewer, Professor Pretentious, and tonight we're going to be discussing The Home, the new horror film starring Pete Davidson, written and directed by James DeMonaco. I've been sitting on this one for a few days, but I haven't really been feeling too compelled to get this out to you as quickly as possible. I saw this on Monday night of this past week at a Scream Unseen. So I'm going to just tell you that I'm going to earn my moniker of pretentious here tonight because I will definitely be talking down to somebody, namely the producers of The Home, and I won't even really deign to intercut any trailers or pictures like I do with most of them. I'm going to give them just as much effort as they gave us. I said that I don't want to waste my time reviewing movies I don't like, but sometimes I just can't let a bad thing go. It's so rare that I decided to take a page out of the book of one of my favorite YouTube channels. So, let's see what makes this film stink. The Home is a film where a troubled man's trauma is laid out ceremoniously over the first 3 minutes of the film. He goes to work at a retirement community where fishy things are going on, and it isn't just the early bird special. I told some of my students the premise of this and asked them to guess what the main reveal was. It took them 2 tries. So I won't spoil too much, but you'll end up getting it in the first 10 minutes as it hits you with the subtlety and sharp annoyance of a brick to the face. This one feels like low-hanging fruit, but I enjoyed being in an audience of horror fans who knew when to laugh at ridiculous content because they are poorly done tropes. They understood that brutality is absolutely hilarious for horror fans when placed at the wrong time in a film. The last 30 minutes of the movie was the most unintentional fun I've had with an audience in a while. So as a consolation, it gives me another reason to advocate for watching horror in theaters. It reminds me of the good old days when I had time to watch Troma or Full Moon films or New World Pictures. The time to bask in the sleaze, to peer down from the pulpit of superiority, trading in my childlike awe for the magic of film, for the teenage ridicule of some piece of shit movie. Now, The Home asks us to imagine how much better Rosemary's Baby would be if it had mated with Cocoon. This one has a problem largely with tone. It tries to be both Rosemary's Baby and Get Out, but can't manage the tone of either. The witty dialogue of Get Out and the absurd comedy of manners from Rosemary's Baby are absent. Its ultimate downfall is its failure to settle on its tone. After having come out of a screening of Together a few days ago, review forthcoming, itself a workshop in balancing tones, The Home feels that much more inept and unforgivable. This movie unfortunately banks on its reveals and twists, but at the points where it should be the most gripping, it induces laughter. You can see this in its foreshadowing or any of its plot plants, such as the hurricane. This movie starts out with a hurricane warning and proceeds to litter this mention throughout the movie. Every TV and every scene is on, and everyone seems to be set to the Weather Channel. We get a ham-fisted mention of how boomers worsen climate change with no follow-up in the story. Then, the hurricane comes to the climax with no mention from the characters and no real consequence or bearing on the plot other than providing an unrelated intensity or minor inconvenience. The important fact that a hurricane is coming is kind of like me saying a cat is coming at the climax of this video, so get ready for it. Writer and director James DeMonaco is most famous for writing and directing most of the Purge movies. And this one feels like a lot of his transition from a very particular style of film into a brand new type of horror film. Unlike this movie, The Purge actually starts from an interesting and promising premise. While it doesn't do the premise much justice in its first film, it does bring out some solid performances and tension, but really rewards viewers far more in later installments. He rode that Purge wave into the sunset with a dozen films and a TV series where he raked in $500 million for Universal. The fact that they didn't return the favor and throw him a bone with producing the home is not a great omen, much like the cat watching me through the door. So if the timeline here is correct, the home wrapped its shooting in mid 2022 and was picked up for distribution in October of 2023. Unless there was a year and a half of reshoots, Lionsgate was sitting on this pile for almost 2 years before releasing it. Something similar happened with their version of The Crow, and we know how that turned out. Not always, but often this indicates the studio is aware of a stinker and is trying to strategize just the right time to open up that diaper to the public. For this one, the middle of the summer, when Fantastic Four and a whole slate of buzzy mid-budget horror movies are coming out, is the wrong time. Now, we'll talk about camp with this one, but what really is noticeable in this film is that gore and weirdness in the picture are in just all of the wrong places. It's kind of a psycho-bitty movie, and it seems to play on those expectations of the Baby Jane or the Norma Desmond character, but it's really more of the old exploitation genre, if that's a thing. I'm not going to take on the cause of anti-ageism, but the use of age doesn't feel like they play on existential fears like dread of mortality, isolation, or obsolescence. Instead, it checks all the tired trope boxes of age-based repulsion. Ew, old people sex. Ew, saggy skin and fluids. Ew, neurodegenerative disorders are creepy. And the most boring of them all is the central conceit of the story, that old people lust after youth. Kind of like my old cat scratching outside the door. Did I feed her? Its gore isn't bad, aside from the translucent blood. Any CGI gore blends pretty well, and the practical gore is well rendered. But there's no imaginative gore. There's one good death set piece, but it's mainly a lot of ick that's intended to be squirmy, but just comes off as prosaic and routine. So if only the craft is there, then it's sort of like a Thomas Kinkade landscape painting. Man, there's that cat again. The film can't choose where to maintain its camp, and this one's a big problem for a horror movie. It's hard to tell if they even intended camp, and if they didn't, it's definitely hard to see if it works. The setup kind of feels like it could be a quirky, campy satire, much like Society or Slither or Bubba Hotep, but doesn't ever lean into that tone. Instead, it feels like a Shyamalan movie, but less The Visit, as you might expect, and more The Happening or Old. Now, a horror movie worth its weight in trash is only as good as its terrible performances, and there are a lot in this one. Pete Davidson, let's start with him. Pete Davidson's relationships with Kim Kardashian, Kate Beckinsale, Ariana Grande, Margaret Qualley, and Madeline Klein show that he can do just about anything. But The Home shows that he will do just about anything. For such a charmer, Pete Davidson really brings his D game to this performance. Lowercase Pete, small d, energy Davidson. His acting here proves that his work in Dogman will provide the most depth and gravitas of his 2025 filmography. Even in his press tours, he seems exhausted with having to promote this movie. I don't know what they were thinking. I think they were hoping for something more like Bodies, 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 but they forgot to make the movie good. They again cast a known comedic actor, still just barely proving his dramatic chops, into a movie where he's given no depth with which to emote and also no humor to dig into. So, at moments when he's supposed to be intrigued or affected, it's like he's scrolling on his phone while his kid is trying to show him a somersault exactly like the dozen he did just a half hour ago. Whoa, yeah, I'm watching. Good form, buddy. A climactic moment in the movie tells it all. The audience laughed uproariously at a character's moment of desperation, where Davidson asks each one of these ailing victims if they are the person in the picture. Yes, Pete, unfortunately, you are the person in this picture. What? What are you doing here? Did I forget to feed you? All right. Even my fellow queer master of horror camp purveyor, John Glover, can't figure out what movie he's in and where to place his charming exuberance, unlike, say, Daniel Clamp in Gremlins 2. In a genre where the worst crime is to be forgettable, The Home is something like a misdemeanor. It could be totally buried, as maybe the studio intended, or it could become The Happening. Given that they're pushing secret screenings on fans, I even heard rumors that they're giving out tickets to this, it means that they're trying to get the audience score up before the critics' tomato meter reveals it to be the wet diaper it is. I think Lionsgate is hoping this movie will be The Happening or Truth or Dare, at worst raking in some cash, and at best being a successfully manufactured attempt to become meme fodder. So, they might be able to take our money, but don't let them take our culture. This has been 40 Reviews, reviewing The Home with Pete Davidson, unfortunately, written and directed by James DeMonaco. So, check us out next time for something with more gravitas and something with less gravitas. I almost don't want to put you in this video.